morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told out of Voice of Radio, so today we need to have a look at some new cards from Cyberjudge and Wild Force that have gone and been revealed over in Japan. And frankly, some of these cards are like genuinely, legitimately really big. And they might not, on the face of it, look like the most exciting cards you've ever seen. I assure you, a couple of the cards we are going to be talking about today are very, very, very important indeed. Sound like a plan? Excellent. So let's start off with what may well end up being one of the biggest cards in the game moving forward. Yeah, I know, I'm sorry. It is Buddy Poffins. I should say I've done the translations here myself, but I have checked with a lovely Antoine Boulet to make sure I've not done a silly. And basically this is Pokemon Search, and I've been telling you lately that when we hit the rotation, Pokemon Search is going to get awkward. We are losing Battle VIP Pass, which of course has been the search for a whole bunch of people, which is frankly not ideal. But we're not just using that, we're also losing stuff like Level Ball, for instance. Other things that may have popped in to take the place are leaving as well. Well, that's where Buddy Poffins comes in. It's not perfect, but it is going to be something that people use to get their basics. What it does is you search your deck for up to 2 basic Pokemon that each have 70 HP or less, and pop them on your bench. And yes, they do go straight to your bench, so any abilities that activate when you play the Pokemon from your hand to the bench do not activate. Which I'm not sure is entirely that relevant right now, but you never know if it's going to end up becoming relevant again in the future. And this gets your basics. Now, unlike Battle VIP Pass, you are very, very limited here in terms of what you can get. Battle VIP Pass only works on your first turn, but you can get any basics. This, they have to be 70 HP or less. And that is going to make a big difference. For instance, a lot of decks right now love using Radiant Greninja. And one of the first things they always get off Battle VIP Pass will be Radiant Greninja. So they can then use its concealed card ability to go and draw a bunch more cards. They're not going to be able to get that with Buddy Poffins. It's not going to work. There are going to be a bunch of things that are really awkward that you cannot get. Rotom V is another popular one that people get early in the game because you've got that whole draw free end your turn ability, which is really good, especially in setup decks. You can't get that one either. It's not perfect, and I'm not claiming it is. But one thing which I think is massively improved by this is the Ditto from 151 that I've been telling you about all along as being a phenomenal card. Because that's got the ability, which actually, again, is only on your first turn of the game. But if it's active, you can swap it for any basic Pokemon in your deck other than another Ditto. So this can get stuff like Radiant Greninja, like Rotom, etc., as well as also being able to get anything that could be got with Buddy Poffins anyway. It's always been an interesting card, it's just been hard to justify the space for it up until now. But if this ends up being the Pokemon Search we all go for, then this card could be, well, a lot better. This is a 5 Wassy card. It's not an exciting card, but we really need more Pokemon Search for post-rotation, and honestly, I expect this to see a redonkulous amount of play, and as somebody who casts the Pokemon TCG and hopes to do it a lot more again in the future, I guess I'd better get used to saying Buddy Poffins. Now, there is a new energy card coming out. This is Mist Energy, and this one is okay. It is a special energy that obviously provides one colourless energy, they all do, and it prevents all effective attacks from your opponent's Pokemon done to the Pokemon this card is attached to, or to put it simply, it's the spoon. You know that spoon card, the bent spoon from Fates Collide? It's that. It's literally that card as a special energy. And I will say this saw a bit of play, but it wasn't exactly some massive phenomenal thing that everybody was using left, right, and centre. And when you're talking about getting rid of effects of attacks, you're basically talking about damage counters, removing energy, and automatic KOs. No, that is not the only stuff that it prevents, but it is a nice little cross-section of it. So things like Sableye dropping damage counters will be stopped here. Things like Roaring Moon getting an instant one-hit KO will be stopped here. So because this is an energy rather than a tool, and because you can use it to pay your attack cost, etc., not every deck is going to be able to find space for this. Not every deck is going to be able to use it. But if you can make a bit of space and justify popping it in your deck, I do think this is one that could see a bunch of play. Because, I mean, if you're worried about Roaring Moon, for instance, whack this on your Pokemon, and all of a sudden that instant one-hit KO from Frenzied Gouging doesn't actually work. This one could be pretty good. I'm giving this one a good solid 4 Wassies. Now, the other one, which I think could end up being incredibly impactful if people play it, which is a massive if, is the new Rabska, or as I like to think about it, the Pokemon whose name I always forget. Seriously, Rabska has been a real blank spot for me. I'm kind of glad they gave it a good card in the TCG, because it might genuinely help me to remember what this thing is actually called. Now, nobody really cares about the attack, although it's not terrible. Single energy, 10 damage plus 30 more for each energy attached to your opponent's active. It's nice for punishing them for attaching too much energy. But what we're really excited about here is the ability. Prevent all damage and effects of attacks done to your bench Pokemon by your opponent's Pokemon's attacks. Yeah, basically anything that comes from an attack, be it damage or otherwise, doesn't hit the bench. Think of it as like better Manaphy. A more impactful Manaphy. But, and I need to stress this because this is incredibly important and several of you have probably already shouted it at the screen, it's not a basic, or if you prefer, it's a stage 1. Manaphy, you get it out, pop it on the bench, boom, your bench is protected. Rabska, you need to make sure that you can get it down and evolve it, get the Relor down, and then evolve it, and that is a much more awkward proposition, I completely understand. But it does prevent effects of attacks as well, and I've seen a lot of people comparing this to Machoke, and I would love it if we could stop comparing this to Machoke, because it's going to lead to a bunch of confusion, especially when we don't have an official English scan here. Because I see where we come from. When I translated this card, Machoke was one of my first thoughts as well. But it's not Machoke. Now, Machoke was a card that did see a fair bit of play and was a very cool card. I played it myself in a bunch of decks. And it prevented damage from attacks, and then damage counters from attacks or abilities. These are not the same card. Machoke does prevent damage counters from abilities, but did not prevent non-damage counter effects of attacks. And this prevents all effects of attacks, damage counters or otherwise, but does not stop damage counters from abilities. And obviously at the moment, Iron Valiant is a thing, which is very much an ability that drops damage counters, which is extremely relevant right now. So, yes, it's kind of similar to Machoke, and it very much feels like that kind of thing, but they are very different in what they stop outside of damage and damage counters from attacks. We need to bear that in mind. Right now, I mean, look, the question you need to ask yourself is there anything in the metagame which drops damage counters that you're worried about? Or removes Pokemon from the bench that you're worried about? Or removes damage from bench Pokemon that you're worried about? Those kind of things. And obviously I've already mentioned Sableye. Attack, damage counters, all of that. Sableye can drop damage counters on anything if Manaphy's sitting chilling on the bench, whereas Rabska will stop damage counters from stuff like Sableye. It's really genuinely good. But it's also a 70 HP stage 1 Pokemon with a weaker basic. It is far from perfect. So that's essentially where we sit here. If you think you can get this into play, brilliant. But there are a bunch of decks who will be able to go after this early doors, and that will be a little bit of a problem. Still giving it 4 Wassies could still be a very impactful card. And right before I sat down to record this, there were a couple of other cards revealed which are pretty interesting and could end up being a bit impactful as well. Like Sableye! Yeah, I've been mentioning the Lost Origin Sableye in this video. There's a new Sableye that mercifully is not quite as good, but is actually potentially very good. What we've got here is 70 HP, blah blah blah, it's Sableye, alright? Nobody cares about the single energy 20, but for 2 colourless energy, you choose as many damage counters as you like from any of your opponent's bench Pokemon, and move them to their active. So if you've got a bunch of damage on their bench, you can move it to the active and go nuts. Obviously, straight away, there is a combo here with Iron Valiant. Spread the damage around and then move it all to the active. And yes, I know Iron Valiant can put the damage counters on the active. I understand that. My point is you spread damage around because they might not have the right Pokemon on the field right now, or you might be wanting to take the KOs in one go to prevent stuff like Iono. Whatever it might be, this opens up a bunch of options. And then, of course, you've got double turbo energy, which will pay this attack in one go, and it reduces damage you do by 20, but that's irrelevant because you're moving damage counters, you're not doing damage, so double turbo energy gives no real downside here. And basically, in any deck that spreads damage around the field, this is a single card tech. Now, you will need either double turbo or some way to accelerate energy, but this could be really, really genuinely good. I like this one a lot. It's not going to be one that fits into a huge amount of decks. That's not the point. This is going to be in a spread deck or a deck like Iron Valiant to give you that option of, oh, there's something in the active I need to deal with right now. Let's move all that damage I've been spreading throughout the game. Oh, my opponent isn't playing any healing cards, so I can spread this damage around, and then I can just go nuts with this Sableye when I need to do so. Really like it. Giving it 4 Wassies. And then we finish off with the Dunsparce. Lovely T0 artwork here. And a very nice ability. Not the attack, free energy 90. Once again, nobody cares. But what we've got here is the ability, once during your turn, you may draw 3 cards. And after that, shuffle this Pokemon and all cards attached to it back into your deck. So it's a draw 3 and run away. And I kind of love this, but it's a stage 1. Now, one of the reasons I really like this is that you don't have to do it right away. So we've actually just gotten an Octillery that is a stage 1 that draws 3 when you evolve into it. Came out in Paradox Rift, got lovely Yukimori artwork, love the card. But the problem with that is you evolve into it, you do it right there and then it's done. Here, I love the idea that you can sit it on the bench, and then if your opponent tries a late game Iono, you can just draw 3 straight away and basically get around it really easily. That is awesome. I love the fact you can leave this sitting on the bench and use it as and when it's convenient. That makes it way better. I also like the fact, of course, that it goes into your deck, so it frees up a bench space, which is really nice. It potentially can heal itself if your opponent is spreading damage around to prevent a KO. And of course, once it's in the deck, you can bring it out and use it again if you so wish. I worry this one is not going to see a huge amount of play because getting the stage 1 out is going to be a pain. But I think the fact that it is sit it there and use that draw 3 whenever you feel like it, I really do think makes it so much better. I mean, even if it didn't go back into the deck, I would love it way more than Octillery, because you can sit there and choose when to draw the cards. You can basically build... I mean, what you could do... I don't think anybody ever will. But what you could do here is get like 3 of these on the bench, and then that Iono to 1 turned into an Iono to 10, and you are rolling. So it is just a straight draw 3. Awkward, takes a bit too much space in your deck because it's a stage 1, got to evolve into it because it's a stage 1, etc. But I'm giving it between 3 and 4 Wassies. We don't give half Wassies. That would be barbaric, because I do think there is a lot of potential here, and I like this very much indeed. Good, good. So that's what you need to know, ladies and gentlemen. These are the new cards, and now it's over to you guys. Tell me which of these you're excited about. Tell me which of these you think you're going to be playing with. Tell me anything you want to tell me in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at @TheWassie. That's where we talk Pokemon and a whole bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCGradio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts, join a Discord, and all kinds of fun things. And get shout-outs on the channel, like the lovely Austin Montville, who's been a supporter of ours for a while now and is a very lovely person. So shout out to them for the support and the loveliness. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.